どアメリカ合衆国軍はイランに対し大規模な戦闘作戦を開始した。このテロリスト政権に核兵器を持たせることは絶対にない。もう一度言う、核兵器を持つことは決してない。我々は彼らの核計画を壊滅させる。もし再建を試みるなら再び完全に壊滅させる。我々は彼らのミサイルを破壊し、そのミサイル産業を地上から一掃する。彼らの海軍を殲滅する。アメリカ合衆国軍の力と威力に挑戦する者は誰であれ、その代償を払うことになる。革命防衛隊及び全ての武装勢力に次ぐ。武器を捨てよ。完全な面積を与える。さもなくば確実な死を迎えることになる。イランの誇り高き国民へ、自由の時は今だ。アメリカは圧倒的な力と壊滅的な軍事力であなた方を支援する。
Good morning, Rise and Freedom. I'm Austin Petersen. It's Wednesday, March the 4th, 2026, and the engines are screaming on the Potomac. I'm your host, AP for Liberty. I'm the man in the arena, and today we're witnessing the return of the black ships. We're going back to 1853 to show you how Commodore Matthew Perry changed the world without asking for permission, and how Donald Trump is doing the exact same thing in the Persian Gulf right now. But it's not just gunboat diplomacy. It's also a vibe shift revolution. We're going to break down the viral storm sparked by an Iranian baddie doing the Trump dance. Oh, yeah. And the social media war that has Persian women around the globe posting defiant, provocative, and unapologetic photos to spit in the eyes of the morality police. It's the lust for liberty versus the oppression of the regime, and the internet's on fire. Later, big brain time. The Constitutional Thunder comes to the show at 8 a.m. The one and only Judge Anna Napolitano joins us to argue that this naval escort is illegal. It's unconstitutional. It's a dangerous war. It's a civilizational loyalty test. We're stress testing the Bill of Rights, the Constitution. And if we have time at 8:30, we're also going to drop some serious Southern shade. 11 ways to tell the Ayatollahs, bless your heart, before we dismantle their globalist narrative. Plus, stay tuned for the tease on our $100 mini documentary Unlock, because here's the tease. We ain't got one. So here's how it's going to work today. Here's how it's going to work today. We got no phase 1 bonus content. Our mini documentary machine is broken. What are you going to do? Can't fix that. So our 11 Southern slang phrases you can use to tell the Ayatollahs to go to hell. That's the bonus content. So if we hit $100 raised today, then you get to hear our 11 Southern slang phrases. Judge TDS says tater salad. That's not nice. Alrighty. So we do have bonus content. It's just that it's going to have to be delivered by me today because our mini documentary machine is broken. We'll try and get it back up as soon as we can. All right. Let's do it. Wake up, America. The story here is not that the United States has no allies. The story is that the United States no longer has automatic allies, right? The story is that it's a very different world that we wake up in this last week. All right. Over the last few days, we've watched the most important military alliance in the world do something that it hasn't done for decades. It had to negotiate with itself, right, in real time over whether America still gets the benefit of the doubt when it takes action. Right. This fight started after the U.S. and Israel hit Iran on February 28th.
President, did Israel force your hand to launch these strikes against Iran? Did Netanyahu pull the United States into this war?
No, I might have forced their hand. You see, we were having negotiations with these lunatics, and it was my opinion that they were going to attack first. They were going to attack. If we didn't do it, they were going to attack first. I felt strongly about that. And we have great negotiators, great people that do this very successfully and have done it all their lives very successful. And based on the way the negotiation was going, I think they were going to attack first. And I didn't want that to happen. So if anything, I might have forced Israel's hand, but Israel was ready and we were ready, and we've had a very, very powerful impact.
Frankly, I believe him more than I believe a podcaster, he said without any displays of irony. But what we saw from our allies, what we saw from Britain, what we saw from Spain was a display of hesitation, legal caution, sovereignty assertion, and in some cases, open defiance. Right? Britain did not join the initial strikes. Spain refused to let jointly operated bases at Rota and Moron be used for attacks on Iran. The European Union called for maximum restraint and full respect for international law. NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte praised the effects of the operation on Iranian capabilities, but said NATO itself would not be part of it, and that is the key. This is not the old post-Cold War moment where Washington nods, London salutes, Brussels mumbles, and the rest fall in line. This was a test of whether American power still comes with automatic civilizational follow-through from our Atlantic alliance. And the answer, at least this week, is no. Our allies are not breaking with us completely. They're actually doing something more interesting and more dangerous for long-term American power. They're hedging. They're saying, we'll help you here, but not there. We'll host you in this case, but not in that case. We will defend against missiles, but we will not own your offensive war, right? They're lawyering up. They're putting conditions on what used to be instinct. And when an alliance moves from trust to terms and conditions, you're no longer looking at a family of nations. You're looking at a contract negotiation with flags. And this is why this matters to normal Americans, because when Washington talks about global leadership, it's easy to think in abstract maps, diplomatic photo ops, or NATO group summit pictures. Everybody looks really serious in their dark suits, right? But real power, what I have learned about it is that it is much less romantic. Real power is access to bases. Real power is whether tankers can refuel. Real power is whether a prime minister says yes tonight or if he makes you wait until tomorrow. Real power is whether your closest allies see your operation as a joint mission or a legal risk that they need to distance themselves from before their own parliaments, courts, and voters start asking questions. And what we are seeing is the beginning of a new Atlantic reality. We can still strike, we can still lead, we can still project force, but we can no longer assume that our allies will provide diplomatic, legal, moral, or even military infrastructure on autopilot. That era is ending right in front of us right now. Now, the alliance hasn't completely collapsed, but it has become conditional. And conditional alliances are slower, weaker, more fragile, and much more expensive to maintain. So the phrase for this, I would say, it's not American decline. The phrase for this is allied hesitation. And if you don't understand the difference, you're going to misread everything else that happens next. So let's start with Britain, because Britain is the closest case and therefore the most revealing. Prime Minister Keir Starmer did not give the United States a blank check. He gave a lawyered, limited, defensive, politically insulated form of support. So on February 28th, after the strikes, Starmer said that British forces were in the sky as part of coordinated regional defense operations to protect British people, British interests, and British allies in line with international law. Now, at first, that sounds boring. It sounds supportive, right? Until you notice what he didn't say. He didn't say Britain joined the offensive strikes. He didn't say Britain was part of a joint war plan. He didn't say that the UK was signing on to regime change, escalation, or any open-ended retaliation. But then on March 1st, Starmer got more specific. He said the United States had requested permission to use British bases for a specific and limited defense purpose to stop Iran firing missiles across the region. And he said Britain had accepted that request. Okay, again, notice the language. Specific, limited defensive purpose. That's, of course, not how a country talks when it's marching shoulder to shoulder into offensive war. This is how a country talks when it is trying to maintain the special relationship without inheriting the full political liability of the special relationship. Now, then on March 2nd came the line that should be burned into the script of this story. In Parliament, Starmer said, "We all remember the mistakes of Iraq, and we have learned those lessons." Interesting. Sounds like something we hear a lot here in the United States. He said any UK actions must also always have a lawful basis and a viable, thought-through plan. This government does not believe in regime change from the skies. Now, that is not a minor comment. That is the British Prime Minister telling Washington in public that London remembers what happens when allies get sucked into a war without a legally defensible frame, a coherent plan, or a plausible endgame. So Iraq still sits in the British political brain and many American political brains like a piece of shrapnel. Now, here's the second fact that makes this bigger. The main base at issue on the British side is Diego Garcia, the strategic U.S.-UK facility in the Chagos Islands. President Trump complained Starmer should have approved use of British bases from the get-go. He said Starmer was worried about the legality. Well, yes, he was, because Britain is not just asking whether America can hit Iran. Britain is asking whether Britain itself will be seen as a co-belligerent in a conflict its government did not initiate. Now, this is what modern allied support looks like. Not no, not yes. Something more frustrating. Yes, but only this far. Yes, but only for this defense. Now, at this moment, you may be saying to yourself, but Austin, I agree with them. It is illegal. President Trump shouldn't have been doing this. I agree with Judge Napolitano, you might be saying. But consider this. Is it that the British really have good judgment when it comes to foreign policy conflicts? Because ask yourself, what if it were a conflict that was an existential threat? What if Donald Trump is telling the truth that he's the one that actually might have pushed Israel into it and that he believes that they would have struck first? And this is the reason. This is what he just said. This is the clip we just played. So what if Donald Trump is actually being honest? I know some of you might laugh at that, but there is a chance Trump is telling the truth. So what if we were in a scenario where we were actually fighting for our life? What if President Trump was correct and we're in these giant treaties and this is how our allies treat us? What if it was an existential threat? What if it was Pearl Harbor? What would our allies do? Would they really be there for us? No matter how you feel about the conflict at all, it's just something that you need to understand because it'll help you to make better decisions about foreign policy in the future. When you see how your allies behave, when you go to fight, you know who's truly on your side. So here's the irony, though. The more important an ally is, the more politically careful that ally has become in the modern world. Britain remains our closest security partner, but even Britain is now adding footnotes to our special relationship. That's the news on this. It's not a headline that, Britain broke with America. The headline is that Britain wants its distance from us and that Britain will not necessarily be there for us if we're in a jam. That is the story. Something to look at. Something to consider. Maybe it's because they are becoming a Muslim nation themselves. Now, let's go to Spain, because Spain didn't give a footnote. Spain said no, and it was a no that turned into one of the most concrete displays of allied friction you're going to see probably all year, maybe. The two places that matter here are Rota and Moron, the jointly operated U.S.-Spanish bases that are in southern Spain. So after the U.S. and Israel launched their weekend attacks on Iran, Spain said those bases could not be used for attacks on Iran. Foreign Minister Jose Manuel Alvarez said Spain would not allow its military bases jointly operated with the United States, but under Spanish sovereignty, to be used for attacks on Iran. Flight tracking data showed 15 U.S. aircraft leaving Rota and Moron. Not a memo, not a leak, not a vague diplomatic friction story. Planes moved, tankers relocated. American operations had to adjust to the fact that an ally said no. Then President Trump turned it into a full-blown political brawl because on March the 3rd, during a White House appearance with German Chancellor Friedrich Merz, Trump said Spain has been terrible. He said, we're going to cut off all trade with Spain. We don't want anything to do with Spain. He also said Spain is absolutely nothing that we need. Probably true. I mean, who really likes tapas, guys? I mean, come on. Let's stop pretending tapas are good. Now, whether the trade threat can be executed, of course, it's a separate question because Spain trades with the United States inside the EU framework, and the White House would have to navigate both the law and then economic realities. So the important fact for this is that the dispute over base access did not stay in the military. It bled into trade, NATO spending, and then the broader question of whether America now treats allied disagreement as something to negotiate or something to punish. Trump seems more of the type of guy to say, well, we're going to punish you. So he speaks loudly and he carries a big stick. So it's not just about Iran. This is about whether host nations, whether they want to say they control how American power moves through their territory. Spain says yes. And whether you like it or not, they are a sovereign nation that does not treat its citizens like cattle or murder them in the back of cars, like we're going to speak to our friend Munay Fatihima. Excuse me for my pronunciation. I'm saying a lot of foreign names these days, so please forgive me. I'll do my best. If somebody mispronounces something, just be kind to them because maybe they learned it by reading. Do you read? You know what reading is? So please forgive me if I butcher some names today. So take a look, it's like step back from this British-Spain thing, right? The European Union's 27 nations, through Foreign Policy Chief Kaja Kallas, they called for maximum restraint, protection of civilians, full respect for international law, including the principles of the United Nations Charter and international humanitarian law, excuse me. So that's the European legal diplomatic language for please don't drag us into something we did not design, cannot control, and may have to clean up. Europe doesn't want to cut loose from the United States. They still want our money, and they hate having they hate the idea of having a nuclear armed Iran, but they're just weak and unwilling to do anything about it. They can't solve their own problems. So of course they want us to do their dirty work, and then they want to be able to wash their hands of it and say that they have nothing to do with it. It's a far cry from the Bush years, too, the type of rhetoric that we're hearing out of the White House, I have to say. I think that some of the problems that the Western world faces with radical Islam could have potentially been handled a long time ago if we had had secretaries of war who had rhetoric that sounded a little bit more like this.
President Trump has also been very consistent. Crazy regimes like Iran, hell-bent on prophetic Islamist delusions, cannot have nuclear weapons. It's common sense. President Trump has also been very consistent. Crazy regimes like Iran, hell-bent on prophetic Islamist delusions, cannot have nuclear weapons. It's common sense. President Trump has also been very consistent.
Islamic delusions. You see, the Republicans for too long have been trying not to offend people. They've tried to play the left's polite games, how the woke left took over our languages in the last 2 years. 20 years, 30 years. The conservatives have been playing along by these political correct games. We have allowed the left to cancel us by making us too afraid to say things like that. It may not sound like much to you for the people that I hang out with, but that right there is pretty strong rhetoric. And say I agree. Certified badasses, this admin. Absolutely. Now, let's talk about the mental filter through which an entire generation sees this stuff, because you can't understand the Allied hesitation without understanding the Iraq hangover. So for a lot of older Americans, Gulf War I in 1991 still looks like the model of legitimate force. Saddam Hussein invades Kuwait. The United States builds a coalition. The United Nations passes Resolution 678, authorizing all necessary means to force Iraq out if it does not withdraw. Congress votes. The objective is limited. The war is sharp. The exit, at least compared to what came later, looks clean. So to many people, that war still feels morally clear precisely because it had both domestic legal cover, Congress, and international cover, the UN. Then comes the Iraq War of 2003, which also had congressional authorization, but did not have a new UN Security Council resolution expressly authorizing the invasion. And that difference changed the political psychology of the West. So what millennials grew up seeing was not just war. It was the argument about war. It was the collapse of trust. It was the endless fight over whether Washington had sold the country a clean story that did not stay clean for very long. And so now you have this worldview deeply embedded in elites, in media, in European parliaments, libertarian podcasters, right? In Tucker Carlson, right? In a lot of American voters that says war is not moral because America thinks it is moral. It has to be stamped, validated, blessed, internationalized, put through a process. And this is where the libertarian critique cuts against that instinct sometimes in a very interesting way, because many libertarians have been saying for years that international law is not the highest law of the American Republic. The Constitution is. The UN Charter is not the U.S. Constitution. The UN Security Council is not the Congress of the United States. And whatever one thinks of prudence, alliances, or diplomatic costs, the core constitutional question is not whether some committee of foreign governments sign off on an American use of force. The core question is whether the American constitutional order is being respected. And that's where the debate gets serious, because the people who say we needed the UN to make Gulf War I moral are really saying something bigger. They're saying that American legitimacy now depends on external permission. And once you say that, you have quietly moved the locus of sovereign decision-making outside of the American Republic. Now, that does not mean that international support is useless. Of course it matters. It builds coalitions. I love Javier Milei. It shares costs. It can clarify objectives. It can lower the political temperature. But it is not the same thing as constitutional authority. So, yes. Can I get an agree in the chat? Agree, disagree, right? So when people ask, should Trump have to ask some kind of Middle Eastern Congress for permission to act in the Middle East? The answer is no, hell no. That is a category error. The real questions are different. Did Congress authorize it? Is the threat real? Is the objective clear? Is the plan coherent? Is the cause just? Can the action be sustained? Are we acting in our American national interests? So this is the Republican question in the old sense of the word. And here's why this matters, because our allies are operating in a post-Iraq legitimacy frame where the process matters more than the purpose. America at its best has never fully thought that way. America has often thought in terms of self-interest, constitutional power, and civilizational responsibility first, and then international blessings second. The danger is not that our allies ask hard questions. The danger is that Americans forget which questions are actually ours to answer, our power. And this is where Trump's legacy comes onto the table in a very big way, because in some sense, he is tapping into an older American impulse that a lot of 19th century admirers and 20th century realists recognize immediately. The United States does not ask history for permission to defend its interest. It acts, it decides. You can just do things. The United States bears the burden. It bears the consequences of that. Some people call that blowback. But that is the romantic version of America going it alone. And when our allies, they hesitate, they delay, or they wrap themselves in procedural caution, bureaucracies, it makes that impulse here very strong. And I deeply, deeply agree with it. The failure of our allies to come undoubtedly with us, it doesn't just create a logistical problem costing you and me more, and maybe American lives. It creates a psychological and political problem. It tells the American public that when the moment of decision arrives, the West might still talk the language of unity, but the United States is still the one holding the risk. And that is why this is all so consequential. We are the ones on the line. And this is why people start reaching for Theodore Roosevelt. Not because the situations are identical, they are not. But because Roosevelt came to symbolize a certain theory of American statecraft, power backed by will, civilizational self-confidence, and a country that did not apologize for being a great power. But here's the important correction. The well-known Roosevelt line is not about a bull in the arena. It's the famous man in the arena passage from his 1910 Sorbonne speech. Roosevelt said, "It's not the critic who counts, and the credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena." That's the line people mean when they talk about him in these moments, and it fits the temper of this debate. Trump supporters, they look at this moment and say, fine, if Europe wants seminars, let America have statesmen. If our allies want to file legal memos, let America make decisions. If history forces a choice, let the United States be the choice. Let the United States be the country in the arena. Let us be the ones who write the history books. not the country commenting from the cheap seats with their paella and their whatever the hell they eat, their tapas. This is the upside case for Trump. That this becomes the moment where he looks less like a television president and more like a president of hard decision. A man willing to take the weight of the republic on his own shoulders when others hesitate. But there is a danger here too, and it is a real one. Roosevelt's worldview was not just strength. It was disciplined strength. It was power alongside a theory of national purpose. So the test for Trump is not whether he can look tougher than Europe. Almost any American president can do that by default. The test is whether this moment is strategic or just theatrical, whether it clarifies American power or overextends it, whether it makes the American Republic look like a self-governing civilization or just an impatient, spoiled brat empire with better branding. So that's what's at stake. Not just Iran, not just the bases, not just the alliance. What is at stake is whether this episode becomes a chapter in the return of American seriousness or another lesson in how easy it is to sound like Teddy Roosevelt without actually governing like a statesman. Your thoughts? Boom! Chicka, 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 chicka. Support the Wake Up America show on the For Liberty Network. God bless it. We're working so hard over here. You have no idea. And I know that it doesn't matter how hard we work because all that matters is the content that we produce and then how much value it brings to you, because I do understand that all value in the market is subjective, but am I worth $1.95? Am I worth $17.76 a month to you? If the monologue that I just completed did not convince you that you need to go to wakeupAmericaShow.com/support and become a Petersen's Patriot today, I am asking you for $17.76 a month. It's not a lot. It will make a huge difference. If you are not a 1776er, sign up today. Support the For Liberty Network. We launched Cafecito Libre yesterday.
Can you bless me with something?
Oh, gosh.
Money-wise.
Correct, John Rail. And thank you for all your support, sir. You've helped build this. Yesterday, we unlocked the ultimate in bonus content, a brand new show on the For Liberty Network. Maylin Salavarria, Cuban refugee. Coincidentally, we've been working on the show for months. We didn't expect that Cuba may be days away. Cuba might be after Iran, in which case we're going to have a show that's going to be very relevant. A bilingual show. Poor Brad has got to cut so many clips. A bilingual show that will strike at the heart of South American communism. We will fight Cuban communism. We will fight alongside Argentina. We will fight alongside Javier Milei of Argentina. We will fight for the libertarians of Mexico. But we can't do it without your support. Support the Wake Up America show and all 5 of our shows by going to forlibertynetwork.com. I'm sorry, forlibertynetwork.com is our Discord server. That's where we hang out and chat. But wakeupAmericaShow.com/support. Let's make Brad a busy beaver. Well, now let's talk truck. Don't forget to click the like button if you haven't already, guys. We'd love to have your support here for free. By the way, totally love to have people just clicking that like button all day long. Click the follow button as well. Thank you very much for all that you do for us here on the Wake Up America show. It's time for us to move on. Gunboat Diplomacy. Wake Up America. Picture the morning of July 8th, 1853. The water in Tokyo Bay is a perfect undisturbed mirror. For 220 years, the shogunate has enjoyed the silence of a world gone by. They've turned isolation into a religion, convinced that the outside world is a distant noise they can ignore forever. On the shore, the samurai guards are watching the horizon, expecting the usual wooden sails, slow merchant brigs. Then things that they can turn away with a polite, firm hand or a katana. But the horizon is about to break. Out of the morning mist, they appear. They aren't drifting, they're charging. 4 massive, soot-stained monsters cutting through the glass-calm water against the wind and against the tide. These aren't the white-sailed beauties of the old world. These are the Kurofune, the black ships, iron-hulled leviathans belching thick, oily coal smoke that stains the pristine Japanese sky like an industrial sacrilege. To the men on the shore, these weren't ships. These were nightmares from a future they didn't ask for. Commodore Matthew Perry is standing on the bridge of the Susquehanna with the United States Navy at his back. And he didn't send a diplomatic cable asking for permission to enter. He simply entered. He didn't wait for an invitation to the table. He built the table and told the shogunate where to sit. The air in Tokyo didn't just change. It ionized. Every official on that shore realized in a heartbeat that the terms of engagement were no longer theirs to dictate. Perry arrived with force so visible, so unmistakable, that the negotiation was over before the first word was spoken. He offered Japan a choice. Open the door, or we will kick it in. And that, my friends, is the essence of the history of the American will. Power that arrives in a way that makes the entire argument irrelevant. Fast forward, February 28th, 2026. The smoke is rising again. But this time it isn't in Tokyo Bay. It's over the nuclear facilities and missile depots of Tehran. Now, while the academics in the State Department were busy drafting condemnations, Donald Trump was reenacting the Perry mission for the 21st century. On Saturday, the United States and Israel delivered a civilizational message delivered by Reaper drones and F-35 jets. A surgical, unapologetic strike designed to degrade the mullah's capacity to threaten the West. It was pure gunboat diplomacy, power used not for endless occupation, but for a specific political result, the dismantling of a rogue nuclear threat. And just like in 1853, the world is reeling from the shock of an America that has stopped asking for permission. Trump didn't call a committee in Brussels. He called the strike. And the fallout, of course, is not just in Iran. It is shattering the cowardice of our so-called allies. When Spain refused to let us use the joint bases at Rota and Moron for these missions, Trump didn't send a flowery letter. He ordered 15 aircraft to pack their bags and move to Ramstein in Germany. He told the world Spain has absolutely nothing that we need, and he threatened a total trade embargo on a nation that boasts a $4.8 billion trade surplus with us. He's showing the world the price of disloyalty. If you won't host the planes, you won't sell the olive oil. So this is the new black ships moment, and the entire globe is realizing that it appears, at least for now, that the age of American hesitation is dead and buried. But let's talk about what this means. What does this mean? What does it really mean? There is a deep historical logic at work here. Gunboat diplomacy is the art of civilizational clarity. It is the strategic use of conspicuous military power to achieve a limited objective without sliding into the mistakes of Iraq or Afghanistan. Keir Starmer in London, shaking in his boots, citing the mistakes of 2003, saying he doesn't believe in regime change from the skies. But Starmer is missing the point. This isn't about nation building. We don't want to govern Iran. We don't want to teach Tehran how to hold a caucus. We want to ensure that they never have the tools to vaporize a Western city. That's the distinction. Libertarian nationalism rejects the nation building of the neocons, but it embraces the Hamiltonian necessity of national strength. As Admiral Alfred Thayer Mahan, the father of American naval strategy, once said, the use of the Navy is to prevent war by being prepared for it. Gunboat diplomacy works because it removes the ambiguity. It says to the rogue actors or hesitant allies, here's the line, here's the cost, and here's the smoke on the horizon. It's the middle ground between retreat and empire. And in a world gone mad, it seems to be that Trumpism may be the only way to keep the peace. Now, could I be wrong? Perhaps. Absolutely. Absolutely, which is why Judge Andrew Napolitano will be joining us live in 20 minutes to tell us why he thinks that this is a unconstitutional, illegal, and immoral war. We'll hear from Judge Andrew Napolitano at 8 a.m. Central on the Wake Up America show for him to give his take. We'll be right back. I'm sorry. I had a commercial that was going to pop up, I thought, but it looked as if a commercial was going to pop up on the screen there, so excuse me. Where was I? Where was I? So why does this matter, right? First of all, I love history. I hope that you do too. If so, I would love to hear your thoughts on this. So the reason this matters, for Russia and for China is simple. So these two belligerents have spent the last decade assuming that America was a decaying giant. They were trying to ensure that it happened. They called for the death of the West while they were busy creating the opportunity where it was. They said the West was dying and they were the ones who were trying to make it happen. They've been funding ideological NGOs. China, we had to kick out one of their universities here in Missouri because it was overrun with Chinese spies in Columbia, Missouri, 30 minutes from where I live. China has been playing their own version of gunboat diplomacy in the South China Sea, building artificial islands and bullying our allies because they thought the black ships would never return. Russia thought they could use Iran as a chaos agent, a shield to distract us from their own expansionism. But when those missiles hit Tehran on Saturday, the calculation in Beijing and Moscow changed instantly. They realized that the Trump administration is not interested in managing decline. We are interested in reestablishing the hierarchy of power. We're showing them that we can smash their proxies and squeeze their trade partners without firing a single shot at their borders. China is sitting on a massive manufacturing engine that requires access to our consumers. And Trump just showed them with the Spain embargo threat, he's willing to shut off the valves. He's proving that the American market is a privilege, not a right. And then that privilege comes with a civilizational loyalty test. The proof that this is working is already hitting the news wires. Reuters is reporting a stunning reversal in Beijing. China is quietly withdrawing personnel and halting infrastructure projects across Iran, just like they were doing in Venezuela weeks before. The dragon is on the run. They see the smoke over Tehran and they realize their billion-dollar investments are now sitting in a kill zone. China is many things, but they're not suicidal. They're a merchant class. They're a merchant society. They're not going to risk their global economic position to defend a regime that can't even protect its own airspace from a Saturday night strike. This is the secret sauce of gunboat diplomacy. It creates a gravitational pull that forces rival powers to abandon their weakest links by smashing Iran's capabilities, by blackbagging Maduro. We've made Iran a liability for China instead of an asset. Suddenly, the Belt and Road Initiative looks like a highway to nowhere. We are decoupling the axis of chaos in real time, not through a 20-year war, not hopefully through an endless war, but through what becomes a 4 weeks max display of raw, undeniable will. China, they're leaving Iran to rot. Tehran is realizing that the dragon isn't coming to save them. Now, what about Russia? Segmentex, USA, USA. Now, what about Russia? Right? Vladimir Putin has spent years banking on Iranian drones and the Iranian distractions to keep the West off balance. But with Iran under the gun and the UK reinforcing Cyprus after the attack on RAF Akrotiri, Russia is losing its southern flank. German Chancellor Friedrich Merz is already talking about, quote, agenda for the day after, which is code for a new European security architecture that doesn't include any Russian leverage. Now, the reason why Putin is so quiet right now is because he is now watching the shredding of his proxy network. Venezuela, now Iran, maybe Cuba. He seeks that NATO Secretary General, he sees that General Mark Rutte is praising the degradation of Iran's ballistic capacity. So he sees the United States is willing to relocate an entire air wing overnight just to prove a point to Spain. The Russians understand power, and they've seen America that has finally stopped apologizing for being a hegemon. So we have stripped away the Iranian shield. We blackbagged Maduro. Now Russia stands naked on the global stage, realizing their entire strategy relied on an America that no longer exists. It's Trump's world now, and we're all living in it, like it or not. Now, at the end of the day, you can call it aggressive, you can call it rude, you can call it interventionist, you could call it dangerous, insane, evil. Whether you love this or whether you hate it, it is gunboat diplomacy. And it is the only reason that Western civilization is what it is today. We're moving away from the era of the globalist bureaucrat and hopefully into the era of the libertarian nationalist statesman. We're reclaiming the spirit of 1853, the spirit that says America will not be ignored. We will not be blackmailed. We will not subsidize the security of people who betray us. Trump is building a civilizational shield. And if our allies want to stand behind it, they better be ready to hold the handle and pay up for their own defense. If not, they can watch the black ships sail by from the shore while they try to pay their bills and with reputation and regret. So the choice is clear: loyalty or loss, strength or surrender. Trump is reopening the closed doors of the world and doing it on our timeline, not theirs. Wake up, America. The engines are firing up and the smoke is on the horizon. Welcome to the Wake Up America show. I'm your host, Austin Petersen. Are you glad and thankful to have me here? Are you? Because I'm glad and thankful to have you here. I've got an incredible show. If you've been having fun the last 45 minutes and enjoying these epic speeches, then let's say thank you to Brad Beckman and Colton Wiegert, who helped make it possible. I got so many difficult last names to pronounce, and I just know that I'm going to get my 8:30 guest name wrong. How do you, when it's spelled Moone, and they have the little, is it the umlaut? Not the umlaut, but the swoop above the E. Don't laugh at me. It's been a long time since formal English. But Rahimi. Munay Rahimi, I'm going to say. But she is at the center of a controversy, where a libertarian woman, I think in Montana, who cares, is like attacking her for saying that she looks like a hooker. And all these beautiful Iranian women are posting these photos. These Persian baddies are doing the Trump dance in Iran. And so many of these Western libturd females are so angry. And it's just... Nune. I know people are mad. People don't like war. People don't like bombs. Doesn't bother me all that much. Especially when you have people like Javier Milei posting videos like these on their Instagram yesterday. Yes, say thank you to Brad and Colton. Say thank you to Stephanie. She does all of the merch now for the most part. She's like the merch princess. She does the books. It is an accounting nightmare trying to make everything work for this. But one day we're going to be so big. We're going to have so many people donating $17.76 a month that we're going to be able to afford accountant. Poor Steffi can just focus on merch. But we got the finances. We got the finances together for the For Liberty Network. We've got 5 live streaming shows. This year, we're going to have our very first booth presence. We might even have a conference. I got to get back to Jeremy Kauffman. We're having an intimate gathering in Boston, May 1st and 2nd. So we're doing in real life events. Quest Fanning will be there. Andy Opperman will be there. Jake Gaeta will be there. So many new friends of Liberty and friends of the For Liberty Network will be in Boston with us May 1st and 2nd. If you're interested in details on the Boston trip, you can get all of those at forlibertyshop.com. Now that we have 5 shows going, things are getting very, very busy. We've got 2 staffers now and Stephanie, so we're growing like crazy. Brian Piotr has been getting some traction lately. Daniela just absolutely killing it Tuesdays and Thursday nights. Now we have Cafecito Libre. Friday nights, we've got the Freedom Arcade. So, we're really moving and shaking, guys. Yes, so Stephanie and Daniela are going to be the booth babes in Las Vegas, which I think, you don't want me as a booth babe, okay? But we're going to have exclusive interviews coming out of Freedom Fest. We're going to have our own table. We're going to be doing the Wake Up America show live from Las Vegas. We're going on the road, guys. And you made it happen. I'm just absolutely thrilled. So keep an eye out because July 8th through the 11th, the For Liberty Network will be in Las Vegas. We'll be at Freedom Fest. We will have our booth. We will have merch. We will be hanging out with Steve Forbes and all the other fun guys out there. come see us in Las Vegas. It'll be me, Daniela, Stephanie, and I think Brian is coming. Mylene is going to be there, and Daniela. All the cool people are going to be in Las Vegas, basically. If you've been looking for an opportunity to party with us, Las Vegas is going to be your chance. So July 8th through 11th, the For Liberty Network will be at Freedom Fest. Make sure that you go there. We're going to have some interviews. I think Spike Cohen will come on. We'll talk about what's going on. We're going to have a special super secret event while we're there for people who have the secret password, which if you are a $17.76 a month supporter or more, then you have the password that you're going to need to get into a super secret event. So make sure that you guys are members of the Petersen's Patriot crew. Head on over to wakeupamericaShow.com/support. We're moving, we're shaking, we're growing like crazy. It's not quite gunboat diplomacy, but it's close. We're steaming into Tokyo Bay. Support Liberty with a $17.76 a month donation. When you donate $17.76 a month, you take a little bit of your time and you give it to us. I know that a lot of people say, I have been doing this for 20 years. I've been, fundraising and building networks, building institutions, spreading these ideas of liberty. And a lot of people, they talk a big game about their patriotism and how much they love this country and how much they love the ideals of liberty. But the truth is that there are very few patriots. There are very few patriots out there. And how do I know this? Not just because I'm like, I'm asking for money. I hope that people sign up, right? You could see this as, saying, oh, well, if you don't donate to me, you're not patriotic. Okay, fine. You could say that's a grifter thing. Okay, makes sense. However, I'm also trying to hire people. I'm trying to give people jobs. So when I'm on the phone, if somebody is like, oh, I can't donate $17.76, I'm looking for work. I'm like, oh, no problem. This is a network. I want to help patriots. I try and give them jobs. And you know what you realize? People don't want to work. They don't even want to get paid. Everybody's looking for stay-at-home jobs that they can do remotely and get paid a really good wage. And I'm kind of like, no, you're going to have to work. You're going to have to go out. You're going to have to go somewhere and work. You're going to have to show up to a location and do something. So what I mean by that is not to just say, oh, well, please donate $17.76 a month to me. If you can, great. If you can't and you're looking for work, campaignjobsnow.com/AP for Liberty. Sign up. Go get paid. So I'm trying to help on both sides of the equation here. So if you know somebody who's willing to get paid in sweat equity, to show up to an event, to a campaign event, show up and say, hey, I'm ready to work. Pick a conservative that's running this year, pick a campaign, one that you like, and you can go get paid to work and do door knocking for them. You get everything, all your transportation, all your living costs. I mean, everybody loves being, working remote, but if you want to get a job where you can get paid, I have paid jobs. So, be a patriot today. Like, if you can't donate, no problem. If you can donate, please do so. If you need a job, I've got jobs, but you got to be willing to work, man. George Washington, when he called for troops. Drew Van Runkle says, get paid for the shit I volunteered to do when I was for you. Exactly. Get paid to do what people do. A lot of people willingly do for free. You know what I'm saying? That's what I'm saying. Anyway, so we've got a little bit less than 10 minutes until Judge Andrew Napolitano arrives. I have some bad news. The AI mini documentary machine is broken, so don't be mad.
Oh, God! No, God!
But I do have, I know, but I do have bonus content for you if we hit the $100 level. So I have a bonus segment that I will perform for you, which is 11 Southern slang phrases that you can use to tell off the Ayatollahs. Forgive me. You monologue for an hour, 2 hours a day, 5 days a week. So the judge will be here in 5 minutes. We've got no $100 mini documentary. We do play the Great Grift off at $150. So please do keep those Rumble rants flowing or purchases made at the shop. Or if you sign up to support Liberty, at $17.76 a month. That also goes to help unlock the bonus content. Good? Are we good? We're good. Okay. You guys ready for Mr. Judge Anna Napolitano? Judge Black Pill? We're going to talk about the rift between constitutionalism and Trumpism, gunboat diplomacy versus a strict reading of the Constitution. Joining us live in less than 5, Judge Anna Napolitano. It's big brain time. We'll be right back. You're watching the Wake Up America show on the 4 Liberty Network. Where businesses never sleep, the technology still crashes. When technology turns criminal, they send up the signal. He's not a myth, and he's definitely not your nephew who knows computers. He installs, he protects, he backs it up, he keeps your business online and out of trouble. Managed IT, security, cloud, support that actually answers the phone. Layer 8 tech. When your network breaks, he wakes. Call Drew before your tech needs a rescue signal.
Are you tired of the strange radioactive effects of leftist culture? Do you ever wonder what happened to good old-fashioned American values? Well, fear no more, because there's a new force fighting back against the cultural rot of today. Introducing Culturama, a right-of-center talk show that's taking back the future today. Hosted by none other than blonde bombshell herself, Daniela Pensack. She's not just talking, she's taking culture back. With sharp takes, brilliant guests, and a few surprises along the way. Tune in to the live video podcast twice a week, because the future doesn't have to be weird. It can be Culturama.
If there wasn't going to be somebody who was a fiery champion of liberty, somebody who would get out there and who would be aggressive, and if they wouldn't do it with more fire or passion than I had, then I would go and I would fight this battle for us. I've fought for the principles that we all share. Parties tend to be secondary to me. We're here because we believe in the principles of liberty. I am not a perfect messenger, but I think I'm a damn good one. This is a replica of our first president's flintlock pistol. You have my full support, my respect, and my gun.
I think that at the heart of my philosophy is much more libertarianism than well, that's the fashionable word these days, I guess. A conservative is no longer just that. He's a libertarian and always has been.
Yet any time you and I question the schemes of the do-gooders, we're denounced as being against their humanitarian goals. They say we're always against things, we're never for anything.
What is fascism? Fascism is private ownership, private enterprise, but total government control and regulation.
Well, the trouble with our liberal friends is not that they're ignorant. It's just that they know so much that isn't so. If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. This is the issue of this election. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
The conservative, so-called, is the one that says less government. Get off my back, get out of my pocket, and let me have more control of my own destiny.
The left in America tells us not to have kids to save the planet, but in Cuba, they stopped having kids because the state destroyed the earth.
Collectivism doesn't create justice. It creates shortages, corruption, and power for the few. I've not just seen it, I've lived it. My family escaped it. Now the same failed ideas are being sold to a new generation. I'm here to expose the lie and defend liberty. From Cuba to Argentina to the United States, the freedom movement is rising. Cafecito Libre is the exile voice of economic truth. Cafecito Libre, premiering March 3rd as part of the For Liberty Network, only on Rumble.
Welcome back to the Wake Up America show. I'm your host, Austin Petersen. We're glad and thankful to have you here. The bombs falling on Tehran have ripped open a debate that goes deeper than partisan politics. The conflict between the Teddy Roosevelt progressive Republican ideal, gunboat diplomacy, versus a constitutional anchor. My next guest wrote the book on the man, Teddy Roosevelt. In his latest column, he calls President Trump's strike on Iran an immoral, unconstitutional, and illegal war of choice. He argues that without a declaration from Congress, these strikes are nothing more than an industrialized death masquerading as policy. But if we look at a world where rogue states seek nuclear fire, is the Constitution a suicide pact, or has the state itself become the monster that it claims to be fighting? To dive into the moral and legal wreckage, former Superior Court judge, a relentless defender of the Bill of Rights, a man who believes that the state by its very nature is a permanent, irreconcilable threat to the individual, joins me now to break down the legal and moral fallout of this war. The one and only Judge Andrew Napolitano. Good morning, Judge. Thank you for joining us on the Wake Up America show.
Good morning, Austin. Thank you for the generous introduction.
Dark days, Judge. Dark days. Your take.
Well, they are dark days. The President of the United States is indifferent to the Constitution, indifferent to the Congress, indifferent to the moral law. And so far, Congress will just roll over and continue the inexorable increase of presidential force. I mean, the purpose of the Constitution is to separate war making from war waging. The Congress declares war, chooses the target, and decides whether or not war is appropriate. The president wages the war. If we get into this business of Congress ratifying a war that the president has already started, that is profoundly violative of the Constitution and leads to nothing more than this dangerous increase in presidential force, which is what we see happening right before our eyes. There is no international law. The president has already told us that. He doesn't abide international law. He doesn't abide the Constitution. He doesn't respect the Congress. He's not even being politically wise, Austin. The other night when he gave his Fidel Castro in length State of the Union, the Democrats sat on their hands except for once. One time the Democrats stood and applauded with all the Republicans when he condemned Iran. Why didn't he ask for a declaration of war on Iran from both houses of Congress? It would have resolved him of a lot of the legal, none of the moral, but a lot of the legal issues that will bedevil him. Why? Because he doesn't view Congress as a co-equal branch, and he doesn't view himself as subject to the Constitution.
Judge, I agree with Trump that we should not be forced to obey international law, but albeit for different reasons. I think it's a very common libertarian belief that the U.S. Constitution should take precedence over any form of international law. I mean, you and I, we both know the Lysander Spooner argument that the Constitution has no authority because nobody living today signed it. So if the state itself is an inherently illegitimate entity, why should we care if it's unconstitutional or illegal? Because isn't calling a war unconstitutional like complaining that a thief didn't follow his own house rules?
Well, the Constitution exists formally, and it ought to exist functionally. We have a Bill of Rights, thanks to the Anti-Federalists, who wrote the Anti-Federalist Papers, which nobody reads in public schools these days. There needs to be a restraint on the president. If there's no restraint on the president because the Constitution is meaningless, then he can right any wrong or kill anyone, and the laws mean nothing and will descend into a form of anarchy. If the state has any legitimacy, it is to restrain itself.
I think many people who are closer to you and I in beliefs would probably get excited to hear that we've descended into a form of anarchy, Judge.
Except if the guy who owns the guns starts killing us.
Of course, yes. Well, there is a very strong... I think most libertarians today are accelerationists. They are... If America is in decline, the view now from like the Duganites and others is that the West is in decline, that this is a managed decline, then they seek to accelerate the fall of the American Republic. This war with Iran, in some ways, if it leads to the collapse of the Republic, is in many ways a sort of accelerationist, anarcho-capitalist dream in some ways. Wouldn't you agree?
I don't think it's going to lead to the collapse of the Republic. It may lead to the collapse of the Trump presidency, particularly if the Democrats achieve significant majorities in the midterms. I think the Republic will eventually collapse for financial reasons, as well as these military reasons. I had to laugh after one of the Gang of Eight came out from the super secret skiff where Marco Rubio tells them secrets and then comes out and decides which secrets to reveal on his own. Somebody in the press said, gee, do you need a continuing resolution? Meaning, do you need more money for this war? More money? The Defense Department already has $1 trillion, and their next budget is $1.5 trillion. And these guys are talking about more money?
Yes, you and I...
That's how sad and sick this is. The Defense Department budget is nothing but a scheme to enrich the military industrial complex, and the Defense Department is a disgrace because of its waste of money. We spend more money than all other defense departments by different names combined.
Smedley Butler said famously, war is a racket. None know that better than you, Judge. While they might complain about requiring congressional authorization for war, they may complain about it loudly to their constituents, but they'll all fund the military. If they truly wanted to stop the president from engaging in war, they could do so with the power of the purse, but they don't. Now, Judge, you argue that only Congress can initiate war. But, Judge, has the American Congress ever truly represented the will of the individual? Because if 535 politicians in a room say yes to a war, does that magically make the killing moral in a way that the president's order does not?
No, it doesn't make it moral, but it makes it legal. The president's war is grossly immoral because the United States has no authority under any standard to remove the leadership of another country, and because Iran poses and has posed no threat whatsoever to American national security. The government has been unable to articulate a moral reason for the war. Oh, Israel was going to go in ahead of us. Okay, using the military equipment that we gave them. And if Trump said no, they wouldn't do it. Oh, we were worried they were going to attack our troops there. Okay, what are our troops doing there? I mean, there is no moral basis for this, and a declaration of war does not make it moral any more than December 8th, 1941, made moral FDR's machinations that produced December 7th, 1941.
That's going to be a great one, Judge, but I'm not going to get into a discussion about the oil embargo and FDR and the planning of the initiation of conflict there. But I want to stay on today. You wrote a column. It's appearing at judgenap.com tomorrow. I love reading the piece before everybody else gets to. It's my privilege here as your friend. Judge, in your column, you mentioned the normalized presidential force. So, but if you and I, we accept the premise that the government is just merely a protection racket, it's just the biggest gang in town. Is the presidential force just the most honest version of that racket? So why do we pretend that the congressional process adds a layer of sanctity to the violence?
Well, if the president respected the congressional process, which this president doesn't, he would be restrained. I mean, what would have happened on December 8th, 1941, if the Congress didn't fall for the ruse that occurred the day before and the sacrifice of 2,700 sleeping sailors and said, no? Would FDR have fought the war anyway? I mean, the whole purpose of the checks and balances and the separation of power, in theory, is to prevent too much power accumulating in one place. When the president expands his use of force and Congress ratifies it, it gets worse under each president. I mean, suppose a president, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, I'll give you the most extreme example, wanted to bomb the Vatican because she thinks the Catholic Church is a threat to national security. Under these theories, these standards that Trump uses, she could do it.
It's very gunboat diplomacy. Judge, one part of your column that you wrote, I didn't understand. The UN Charter and the Geneva Conventions, you sort of cited them as the law of the land. But for people who, like myself, I view these globalist institutions as a threat to individual sovereignty. So why should we respect these treaties who are signed by dead politicians that give foreign bureaucrats a veto over our own security?
Well, they don't give foreign bureaucrats a veto over our behavior. First of all, we wrote, there are 5 of them, so the charter is one, and there's 4 Geneva Conventions. We wrote all 5 of them, and they're ratified by the Senate. If the Senate's ratification is invalidated when the senators die, that defeats the clause of the Constitution, which says treaties are the supreme law of the land along with the Constitution. The UN Charter section to which I was referring requires the approval of the Security Council before one member state can attack another, unless there's an imminent danger. Trump and Hegseth and Rubio have been unable to cite that imminent danger. In terms of the Geneva Conventions, they don't regulate who you can kill, they regulate how you can wage the war. So they prohibit you from bombing a school and killing 160 little girls. They prohibit you from bombing a hospital, all things which were done either by the Israelis, it's hard to say who did it, either by the Israelis or the Americans in this war. No apologies, no recognition, just the Secretary of Defense, who calls himself the Secretary of War, boasting.
Judge, you say that
it's stomach churning that these people who run the government boast about death.
Judge, speaking of death, you say that if the president can kill abroad, he can kill at home. But if the checks and balances haven't stopped 100 years of overseas adventurism, isn't it time to admit the Constitution's failed to restrain the federal government at all?
Yes. Yes. Constitution is a dismal failure as a restraint on the federal government. It's time for nullification and secession. I mean, could you imagine what would happen if Texas seceded from the Union? The feds would go bankrupt overnight. Well, they're already bankrupt.
I blame a lot of this on the United Nations, Judge. I really think that a lot of this war confusion post-World War II comes from the fact that we joined that international institution. And now we've put ourselves into a situation where we're sugar daddy for the world. all of these European countries that hate us, we pay for their national defense, Judge, and then they use it to turn around and mock us because we don't have single-payer health care in the system.
All right, so you're confusing the UN with NATO. We don't pay for their defenses through the UN. We pay for it through NATO, which is a farce and a joke and should have been unraveled as soon as the Warsaw Pact was unraveled and the Soviet Union went away. In fact, there wasn't even a need for NATO from the time of its creation in the late 40s to the demise of the Soviet Union. That's where the waste comes in. Why do we have 90,000 troops in Germany? Why are we paying for all that? Why is the German military budget so low? Because we're paying for 90,000 troops on their lands. That's the immoral, unjustifiable use of our assets. And that, I agree with Trump.
It's fascinating.
But that too is a treaty which he can't absolve on his own. It would require an act of the Senate to rescind that treaty. And again, it's a treaty that we wrote. Every one of these treaties to which we are a party, we wrote.
The problem with the law is that it's so contradicting and conflicting that, any good lawyer could argue either side and come out on top. So eventually it just becomes the law of the jungle. And in some ways, I kind of admire Trump's gunboat diplomacy for that purpose, because he has no respect for international law. Good, I have none either. And he shows how weak our allies are, how little they care for us.
But you have a respect for right and wrong.
Yes.
Some things are wrong, like bombing a school with little kids in it. Trump does not, I don't know what's in his brain. Trump's behavior does not manifest a recognition of right and wrong.
You're in terms of his persona, I think I agree with you there, but I can't help but wonder if his ruthless capitalism doesn't have in it some strains of Randianism. If it doesn't have some strains of Heinleinism, right? Robert Heinlein, famous libertarian science fiction author, his concept of the government. Ayn Rand probably would have really loved Donald Trump.
Probably so. Probably so.
Because he's of the capitalist. He's a kind of a corporatist capitalist for sure, not a
correct.
Not
and
a free market.
At heart he hates the concept of an income tax.
He does. Yes, Judge, and thank you for admitting that. These are fascinating problems for we libertarians to contend with, because if we don't rely on old tired platitudes, if we look at this from an anarchist perspective, so the anarcho-capitalists for years have been saying the Constitution is a dead letter document. Even if you and I don't agree with Trump's actions, in some ways he throws off what you and I would call the New World Order, what Alex Jones calls the New World Order, right? Not globalization in the free trade sense, but the globalists of the IMF and the World Bank and the United Nations and NATO. I mean, in some ways, it's rather refreshing to see Trump flipping the bird to these institutions that you and I have hated for years because of their threats and violations of American sovereignty.
Now, you mentioned Alex Jones. I was very disappointed in his support of these ice monsters in Minneapolis. Where is he on this war? Do you know?
Oh, I think he's taking an anti-war view on this one. You should definitely go on his show. He has been doing a lot of, I think, soul searching in the last few days, at least from what I have seen. But I've been distracted covering it that I haven't had time to read his views in full. But the anarchist in me is always at tension with the constitutionalist in me. Right? If an individual sees a neighbor pointing a gun at them, I don't have to wait for a committee to vote before I act. So why should a national body of people be held to a lower standard of self-preservation than a single person? How do we
This
answer
is not a question of self-preservation. This is a war of choice. If it is a matter of self-preservation, if the Russians have missiles in Havana aimed at Dallas, no, we don't have to wait. But the Iranians had posed no threat whatsoever to the United States. One can always engage morally in self-help when the threat is imminent. But when the threat is not imminent, when the government can't even articulate what the threat is, there's no basis for the law. And if you can just disregard a law because it's inconvenient, well, then the laws mean nothing. You have to follow procedure. The history of human freedom, it's the history of paying careful attention to procedure. Otherwise, we'll have the type of gunboat diplomacy that kills people on the high seas, about which I wrote and you and I discussed last week, because the president thinks they are distributing controlled dangerous substances to willing American buyers. You'll see that in the streets of the United States, the government killing people because it thinks they're going to commit a crime. That's what happens when you get rid of a careful respect for procedure.
I like that you're saying this, Judge, especially because I've been thinking about this so intensely. It has been at the front of my mind, this question of the procedure, because for a long time we focused on procedure rather than outcomes. And in a case of, say, a national abortion ban, you and I, the federalist in us, the states' rights, if you might say, or states' powers, a person in us says, good, Roe versus Wade is overturned. This is a win for us. Right, but it betrays a principle of federalism. And we have had discussions about what is important truly is not necessarily the process by which we achieve our liberty, but that we achieve liberty in total. So if the federal government does something libertarian to stop that, let's say a state wants to confiscate all guns, if the federal government steps in, that goes against our principles of federalism, but the outcome is what matters, that the state can't take away our individual rights then. So now we see this tension between the process, the procedure that you say is important, but then in other situations and cases, the outcome is more important. So how do we square this, Judge? And I truly don't know. Help me to understand.
Well, you square it by respecting natural rights. And natural rights mean that you have the right to defend yourself no matter what the government says. You have the right to own a gun, even in an area where guns are prohibited, because that is a pre-existing right that pre-exists the government, that comes from you. If the government says you can't criticize the government, you have the right to criticize it no matter what it says. But the reason we have procedure is to prevent totalitarian government from raping us of what self-respect we have. That's why we have the Fourth Amendment, which you would think didn't exist in Minneapolis for a couple of weeks. I gather it's back being enforced now that those little Nazis are out of the streets. So you're right, there are these tensions. Tension is good, Madison said. He actually referred to it as jealousy is good because it tempers the government, it exposes the government, it results in transparency, and the people can see what's going on. The end result should be more personal freedom. It doesn't always end that way, because we elect the worst people to office and not the best.
Tell me about it, Judge. Judge, I learned something every time we have these discussions. One last thought, Judge, and share with us after we're finished. Please, you're finished answering this question. Please share with us who you have on your show. But I think I understand the tension that many Americans have with our libertarian principles, and maybe you can help us to open up a new way of thinking, or at least a new way of messaging our ideas, because it sounds like if we follow this logic to its end, right? If the state is prohibited from acting without a declaration, but the declaration process is effectively dead, people perceive that as saying that a free society has to simply wait for the monsters to arrive at the door. So how do we fashion a libertarianism that has a don't tread on me aspect to it, right, that accounts for national security questions if the declaration process is dead? How does a free society defend itself from actual monsters?
Well, by throwing out people from the government who don't take their oaths seriously. I mean, the purpose of the Constitution is to restrain the government, to separate the powers, to engage in checks and balances, to recognize the sovereignties of states, to recognize the primacy of the Congress in enacting taxes. The president can't enact his own tax. Thank God the Supreme Court recognized that. But people who trample the Constitution, who don't recognize restraints on their own power, should be removed from office.
Judge Andrew Napolitano from Judging Freedom, my good friend for years. We talk this every Wednesday at 8 a.m. Central on this show, and we call it Big Brain Time because we get into the topics and the story and the history and philosophy that you won't get on other shows, except his own, Judging Freedom. Who do you have coming up, Judge?
Oh, I have in half an hour at 10 o'clock Eastern, Professor Mohammed Marandi, who was born in Arlington, Virginia, but teaches at the University of Tehran, coming to me from the basement of his house in Tehran. At noon, I have Colonel Douglas McGregor.
Judge Andrew Napolitano, host of the Judging Freedom podcast, here to help us understand the tension between the Constitution and anarchy. Judge, thank you very much for your time today. We're truly grateful for it.
Thank you, Austin. All the best to you.
Thank you. What do you think of Judge Andrew Napolitano? So thankful to have his wisdom every Wednesday morning here on the Wake Up America show. So the process versus the outcomes, the process versus the outcomes. And that is what I am struggling with. That is what, in my mind, I fight back and forth in between. I have trouble trying to determine what is the correct path, the process or the outcome. To this point in my life, I would say I have been a person who trusts the process. The process is what is most important. But over the years, as I've grown and as I've aged and as I've hopefully become wiser, maybe I've become stupider. Maybe I know less than I did before. Maybe I have taken a wrong turn in my thinking. But I have this niggling doubt. I have this feeling that the outcome is more important than the process.
And other countries where it looked like it was an impossibility, and it looks like that one's going to collapse also. So Iran can be taken. I would never take the military card off the table. And it's possible that it'll have to be used because Iran cannot have nuclear weapons. And other countries where it looked like it was an impossibility, and it looks like that one's going to collapse also. So Iran can be taken. I would never take the military card off.
There we go. That was Trump in the first administration. Stay right there, America. When we come back, we're going to dive into the social media storm that has the left and libertarians in a total meltdown. Beauty versus the bureaucracy. Persian liberation versus Western jealousy. Munay Rahimi is here to tell us next why a dance and a dress have American liberals and libertarian women running for the border wall. You don't want to miss this. We'll be right back.
In a city where businesses never sleep, the technology still crashes. When technology turns criminal, they send up the signal. He's not a myth, and he's definitely not your nephew who knows computers. He installs, he protects, he backs it up, he keeps your business online and out of trouble. Managed IT, security, cloud, support that actually answers the phone. Layer 8 tech. When your network breaks, he wakes. Call Drew before your tech needs a rescue signal.
Are you tired of the strange radioactive effects of leftist culture? Do you ever wonder what happened to good old-fashioned American values? Well, fear no more, because there's a new force fighting back against the cultural rot of today. Introducing Culturama, a right-of-center talk show that's taking back the future today. Hosted by none other than blonde bombshell herself, Daniela Pensack. She's not just talking, she's taking culture back. With sharp takes, brilliant guests, and a few surprises along the way. Tune in to the live video podcast twice a week, because the future doesn't have to be weird. It can be Culturama.
If there wasn't going to be somebody who was a fiery champion of liberty, somebody who would get out there and who would be aggressive, and if they wouldn't do it with more fire or passion than I had, then I would go and I would fight this battle for us. I've fought for the principles that we all share. Parties tend to be secondary to me. We're here because we believe in the principles of liberty. I am not a perfect messenger, but I think I'm a damn good one. This is a replica of our first president's flintlock pistol. You have my full support, my respect, and my gun.
I think that the heart of my philosophy is much more libertarianism than well, that's the fashionable word these days, I guess. A conservative is no longer just that. He's a libertarian and always has been.
Yet any time you and I question the schemes of the do-gooders, we're denounced as being against their humanitarian goals. They say we're always against things, we're never for anything.
What is fascism? Fascism is private ownership, private enterprise, but total government control and regulation.
Well, the trouble with our liberal friends is not that they're ignorant. It's just that they know so much.
Democrats are brainwashed. I don't understand how you guys can support the killing of 40,000 people over the past 3 weeks, but yet when Trump bombs Iran, this is what they were asking for. They were asking to be bombed so that the government can go away. Now you guys are upset that like an elementary school of children was killed. Well, what about all the 40,000 people that were killed before? This doesn't make any sense. You guys are fake humanitarians and you guys are brainwashed. It's delusional. You guys don't make sense.
Whew. For decades, the women of Iran have lived under the suffocating thumb of a theocratic regime that views a stray strand of hair as an act of rebellion. They have faced the morality police, the lash, and the prison cell just for the crime of being visible. But something has now shifted. As the mullahs tremble in Tehran, a wave of Persian beauty has crashed onto social media, celebrating the promise of liberation with the Trump dance, an unapologetic self-expression. And we love to see it. The most surprising reaction, though, didn't come from the Ayatollahs. It came from the American left and from American libertarians. Libertarian activist Melissa Wong dismissed these brave women as looking like hookers. And that exposed a very deep and very ugly vein of insecurity in the Western feminist establishment. It turns out that the same pro-woman lobby that cheered for open borders is suddenly discovering the merits of isolationism the moment they feel threatened by the arrival of traditional, beautiful, and fiercely independent Persian women. It's a tale of intersex competition, political realignment, and the raw power of liberty. Joining me now to discuss the controversy and the reality of life under the veil is Munay Rahimi. Good morning, and thank you for getting up so dang early on the West Coast, Munay. We're so grateful to have you here today.
Well, hello, Austin. Thank you so much for having me here. I'm so grateful to be here, to be with you guys and talk about these kind of stuff that you just mentioned.
Some people might say this is a tabloid story because it involves lots of beautiful women, Munay, like yourself, but I think that there is a deep, deep undercurrent of important topics that we're going to discuss today. But before we do, the tabloids. So you found yourself at the center of a viral firestorm after Melissa Wong's comments. So what was your immediate reaction to seeing a free Western female use that kind of language against Persian women who were celebrating their freedom?
Well, just to mention, first of all, just as you mentioned also, all the women inside of Iran, they're like oppressed. Were silent for decades. They didn't have the rights to choose what to wear, what to do, basically how to live. And when they come to US, just like me as an example, because I moved to US about like 2 years ago, when they come to the USA and then enjoy the freedom in USA, someone like Melissa just comes around and then act like a morality police, like those police that women in Iran experiencing, like what's going on here? And that's just really odd. And this is unacceptable that like if like you seen a woman, like especially Iranian woman, celebrating the freedom and thanking Donald Trump for the rescue mission, like calling them hookers, like why would that be okay, and why people not talking about it?
Well, so there's this jealousy, I think. A lot of now here, and there's an irony here too, because in this country we're having a big debate about immigration, Monet, and a lot of these liberal women are very pro open borders. They suddenly seem very upset about people like yourself coming to the United States and bringing your beauty to American males. So, what do you think is making them so insecure?
Actually, I don't know. Maybe
I
I
think
don't
you
want to
know.
compliment. I know I don't want to compliment myself. I just wanted to.
All
I
right.
just wanted to mention that it's just so odd that like so many other women, they, I don't know if I should say their name, but like there are some women that they do like some activities, and nobody called them hookers, like, but because they're pro-Palestine.
Yeah.
I don't want to say their name.
Yeah,
but
no, you're right. You're right. They are selective morality police.
yes, selective morality. Like if they see like someone like me, I'm first of all Iranian. Second of all, I moved to US 2 years ago, so I consider as an immigrant. And then most importantly, I support President Donald Trump. I think that would make them so insecure, like seeing someone like me, Iranian, who's like studying PhD, who is successful, who's an immigrant, who's coming to the US, who's bringing values. I think that's the reason that makes them insecure and cannot see something like that happening. Because if you like go through social medias like Instagram, Twitter, you see most of the Iranian actually are more pro America, like more patriot than Democrats in USA. So I think that would makes them to like talk to like react like that.
The Donald Trump effect for sure, Monet. We'll definitely try and get to that a little bit later. But let's talk about why this is an important story. Because there are people, these people in the United States, Monet, they have it so good. A lot of these liberal women that are angry at you are 300 pounds. They have purple hair, right? They're not healthy, right? And they've lived in their entire life eating Kentucky Fried Chicken and posting their opinions online and acting like they're warriors for their beliefs. But they've not lived under a theocracy. Can you describe to us, Monet, what happens to a woman in Iran if she posts the kind of video that you posted that went viral this last week? What would happen to you?
Okay, so if you do the same thing that I did as a woman that is actually inside of Iran, the police find you. First of all, they close your social media without your permission. Like they just come and get your social media away. Second of all, they find you and then they come and arrest you immediately, maybe in 1 or 2 days, and take you to the jail and put you on a torture, especially if they see that you're actually thanking President Donald Trump. That would make it like really difficult because they're gonna torture any kind of person that who's like is a supporter of USA or supporter of President Donald Trump. And at some cases, which is actually most of the cases, they actually.
Oh, we had it playing in the background. Go ahead.
Yeah, so basically they torture women who do like these things like that in jail.
So Melissa Wong, the one who called you out, so her comments seem to echo the Puritanism of the mullahs. So do you see a parallel between the sort of regressive left in America and the religious police in Tehran?
Actually, I do. So is that your question? That is there anything like similar between like morality police and then the Democrats?
Yes.
I think at some point, yes. So I'm seeing like so many hypocrisy to like in between like Democrats because I'm seeing there are so many girls, so many women who even dress less than me. And by the way, I just like dress normally as a person who wants to like go out in the night and enjoy the death of the Ayatollah with my Persian friends. So anyway, I'm seeing so many women who dress less than me, but just because they support Palestine, they admire those people. Or I'm seeing like so many people that they do horrible stuff, like awful stuff, but just because they support Palestine, they still admire those people. But when um it's kind of like a similar in Iran because most of the pro Islamic regime in Iran, they do so many horrible stuff, like so many awful stuff. They and they get supported by the government in Iran. So this is like some kind of like a pattern that I'm seeing that is similar between like these behaviors of lefties and pro-Palestine people in USA and then the people in Iran, which not all the people who like support the Islamic regime in Iran.
Why do you think, Monet, that the Trump dance is such a powerful symbol of rebellion for Persian women inside and outside of Iran? Why the Trump dance?
I don't know. It's just like pops into my head because okay, first of all, I just know. I mean, as I said, I moved to US 2 years ago, so I'm a I'm like knowing Donald Trump like in depth as like a following like what he's talking about, what are his speech about and this kind of stuff for like such a short time in compared to like Americans. And it was like enough time, not such a long time, but it was enough to realize that this guy is actually a man of a
What is what do you think the one thing like, or maybe something, maybe one or two things, what is the thing that Western feminists are getting wrong about the struggle of women who are actually living in the Middle East, Monet?
I think they're getting wrong because the fact first of all, they actually close their eyes towards the facts that Islamic regime countries or Islamic countries or the Islam religion itself has for the woman. First of all, this religion is, to my opinion, is the most misogynist religion that I ever seen, which makes it kind of, it doesn't make sense if a feminist like support this regime at the first place or support a person who actually like follows the rules of this religion, which is completely misogynist. So I think they're getting it wrong at the first place by supporting this regime. And I believe they support this regime just because this regime supports like Hamas or, as I said, like Palestine. And it just helps the Hamas to like fight back or like doing stuff like October 7th to like Israel. So I think it all goes back to Jews. So
it always goes back to the Jews, Monet. Trust me, we know.
Yeah.
We know that crowd. They're very. It's kind of like it's kind of a weird phobia kind of a thing. But Monet, I don't have you for very much longer, and I want to ask you that post that she shared of you and calling Persian women who are dancing and celebrating, calling them hookers. It has gone viral. I think that post had 20 million views. Okay. And it wasn't just people looking at it, but the Persian diaspora, women all over the world, suddenly, beautiful Persian women posting themselves dancing, and men dancing, doing the Trump dance, responding to her. So what do you think the message is that people, that Persian people, Iranian people who are not in Iran, what do you think that the message is that they're still trying, everyone's trying to send?
I think their message is to like show the world that okay, we first of all we getting oppressed for most of our lives in Iran, and when we get out of the country and then we trying to like enjoy the freedom, someone like her coming to like shame us for how we dress, which is absolutely insane. If like someone like Melissa Wong call us like hookers just because the way we dress, why she's not coming to like Islamic countries to live? Like if she wants like see people who do not like dress like this, if she does not want to see people have freedom of choosing what to do, what to wear, she basically can just go to those like Islamic countries and just enjoy the oppression of women every day. So,
Send her there, Monet. I would trade for every one beautiful Persian baddie. We will trade.
Oh, let me tell you that.
We will trade.
This is getting viral. People in internet, they say we want to trade
Yes.
Persian baddies for liberal. First of all, Iran is not a garbage bag. Like we don't want them. We want to free this.
No, I know. I tell you what, we'll drop them. We'll send them on a ship through the Strait of Hormuz, and see if they can make it. Then they can return to the United States. They can run the gauntlet. We'll give them like a 6-week. How about the Ayatollahs and the liberals in the United States? We'll just put them on an island, or we'll just put them on a rocket ship, and we'll blast them off to space together.
What if we just throw them in galaxies? Like,
oh god,
we don't want like the nature like getting like
Yeah, maybe Donald Trump has the best answer after all.
Yeah,
Monet, if Trump is successful, if the Iranian regime is to collapses, what does the new Iran look like in the eyes of the women who are leading this cultural revolution? What is the possibility? Can Iran govern itself without the Ayatollahs?
First of all, we want this to be led by the leader that all the Iranian inside and outside Iran that we're chanting and calling, which is King Reza Pahlavi, and we want him to lead this free Iran in future. And I believe if you know about the Iran before like 47 years ago, like the monarchist government, like monarchist countries that it was 47 years ago, it would be kind of look like that. Like women are free, women kind of the freedom, the same freedom that we have in West would be in Iran. So that would be my wish, my people wish to have like this such a freedom in Iran, so we can all be as we want, like do whatever we want, dress whatever we want, and then not having like those difficulties that we used to have.
It's an interesting time, and I wish you and your family nothing but blessings and nothing but the best. This has been a problem since 1979. I think that Persia is not like Iraq. Iran is not like Iraq, and I think that your people probably more than many have a good opportunity to have freedom and to have self-governance. It would be a good thing for world peace and for stability, for sure. Monet, now is the time of the interview when I like to give our guests an opportunity. Maybe you have a cause that you want to plug. I mean, you know people who are raising money to help refugees, or any kind of. You can plug your X account if you like. Anything that you think that we missed that you'd like to share. This is your opportunity.
Um, Nothing much, just that if you guys wanted to follow me on X or Instagram, um, there is my username if you could put that up. But yeah, that's all I can say. And then let's just pray for those American soldiers that they put their lives for this mission, and I fully respect their bravery, and not just me as an Iranian. All of my Iranian fellows, they fully respect their bravery and their family. So thank you to them. Thank you for their families. God bless America. God bless American soldiers, and then God bless Iran. Thank you so much.
Muneh Rahimi, our favorite Iranian baddie. Proud patriot monarchist, PhD student engineering, MAGA, MIGA, nightmare to Islamic totalitarians. You have a wonderful day, and thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Good luck.
I am tired of seeing some politicians here in America, especially Democrats, making this about their own politics, scoring political points like Kamala Harris. Suddenly, she kept quiet about the massacre. Suddenly, she found a voice condemning the targeted military strike against the killers. So when ordinary people get massacred, you don't have any problem? Who are you?
Donald Trump has dragged us into a war the American people do not want. He has put American troops in harm's way. I unequivocally oppose this war of choice, and everyone should. And the bottom line, when it comes down to it, is that if we want to stop Donald Trump with this random decision that he has arrived at, then Congress must act, and Congress must act immediately. The American people do not want our sons and daughters to go into this unauthorized war of choice, and I unequivocally oppose it. Thank you.
Who are you? Who are you? Who are you?
And so with that, we say goodbye. Today's show, Wednesday morning. Wow, the week flying by. Today's show was a great show. It was a show with a lot of energy and a lot of ideas. I, myself, am conflicted about many of these things. I guess all I can do, since I have 10 hours of content to produce a week, actually more, just keep talking about it. Working it out in the public view. I don't have all the answers. I just do my research, share it with you, and you tell me if you think that it's right or wrong. Cecilia, Mighty Megatron, Quest Fanning, Frickety, John and Casey, all you guys, Relaxi and McGroin even. You're all helping build the For Liberty Network. Thank you for all you do for us. Thank you for all of the purchases that you've made at our store. Thank you for supporting us, Cecilia. You've been wonderful. Megatron, Relaxium, I think, has even bought a time or two. Support the network. Don't forget, brand new show, Cafecito Libre, Mylene Salabaria on Tuesdays and Thursdays, 3 to 5 p.m. Central Time. Culturama, 7 to 9 p.m. Central Time. Liberty Tonight, 7 to 9 Central Time. Wake Up America show, Mondays through Fridays, 7 to 9 a.m. Central Time. Freedom Arcade, Friday nights, 8:30 p.m. Central Time. We've got 5 live shows on our network. Don't you kind of want to see how far we can go? Don't you kind of want to see what we can do to build? Do you guys want to build a huge, awesome, powerful libertarian network? You want to do it? Let's do it. Let's do it, guys. Come on, we're doing it. I can't believe we've gotten this far. Come on. All the odds are against us. The chips, when they're down, I like to bet on black. Me. Because black don't crack. You want to find the whole show lineup? Go to wakeupamericashow.com. That's wakeupamericashow.com. Head on over to wakeupamericashow.com. And when you do, you can see all of the shows lineup right here. The Wake Up America Show with Austin Petersen. What is this For Liberty Network? Well, it's all these shows. This is the For Liberty Network. You click that button. Look, it's me, Daniela, Brian, Mylene, Stephanie and a couple of hairy dudes. They're standing behind us, metaphorically and literally. Click that support page. Sign up. $17.76 a month. Look, if you can't do $17.76 a month, I get it. $5 a month. If you can do it, $50 a month, $100 a month. We've got a few people doing that. Support the For Liberty Network. Imagine what we can do with an army. 800 people donating $17.76. When we get this baby up to 88 miles per hour, you're going to see some serious shit. We'll be back tomorrow on the Wake Up America show. Exit through the Grift Shop, and we'll see you right here on the For Liberty Network.
In a city where businesses never sleep, the technology still crashes. When technology turns criminal, they send up the signal. He's not a myth, and he's definitely not your nephew who knows computers. He installs, he protects, he backs it up, he keeps your business online and out of trouble. Managed IT, security, cloud, support that actually answers the phone. Layer 8 tech. When your network breaks, he wakes. Call Drew before your tech needs a rescue signal.
Are you tired of the strange radioactive effects of leftist culture? Do you ever wonder what happened to good old-fashioned American values? Well, fear no more, because there's a new force fighting back against the cultural rot of today. Introducing Culturama, a right-of-center talk show that's taking back the future today. Hosted by none other than blonde bombshell herself, Daniela Pensack. She's not just talking, she's taking culture back. With sharp takes, brilliant guests, and a few surprises along the way. Tune in to the live video podcast twice a week, because the future doesn't have to be weird. It can be Culturama.
If there wasn't going to be somebody who was a fiery champion of liberty, somebody who would get out there and who would be aggressive, and if they wouldn't do it with more fire or passion than I had, then I would go and I would fight this battle for us. I've fought for the principles that we all share. Parties tend to be secondary to me. We're here because we believe in the principles of liberty. I am not a perfect messenger, but I think I'm a damn good one. This is a replica of our first president's flintlock pistol. You have my full support, my respect, and my gun.
I think that the heart of my philosophy is much more libertarianism than well, that's the fashionable word these days, I guess. A conservative is no longer just that. He's a libertarian and always has been.
Yet any time you and I question the schemes of the do-gooders, we're denounced as being against their humanitarian goals. They say we're always against things, we're never for anything.
What is fascism? Fascism is private ownership, private enterprise, but total government control and regulation.
Well, the trouble with our liberal friends is not that they're ignorant. It's just that they know so much that isn't so. If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. This is the issue of this election. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
The conservative so-called is the one that says less government, get off my back.